Hey everyone. Thanks for coming back. Um, this is the second webinar in our series about how to set up a marketing plan. Um, this is the template that we've been working from for this series. So last week we talked about how to properly set up a release strategy and a marketing plan. And this week we're going to be going over landing pages, playlists, and websites, sort of the basics of all three. Um, just to clarify, by landing page, we mean the pages that you can make on Future.fm, as well as for how you can incorporate those into your artist website and part of your larger strategy. Um, so to get started, we'll just sort of quickly recap what we did last week, and then we'll dive into the first of our subjects. So last week, we walked through how to create a pre-save link for our fictional release that we have coming out on June 10th. Um, we set up some basic strategy goals and cleanup for our artists' streaming profiles and for their marketing channels. We also set up our pre-save link for this release, as well as the activities tracking so that we can track our insights before the release comes out as a pre-save and then afterwards as a post-save, as well as setting up sort of just a very basic calendar here for our release. Um, so for today, we're gonna sort of jump into the landing pages, or which are the links that you drive traffic to, so people can click on those. We'll talk about some of the ways that you can sort of customize those for your release, and we'll just get started with that. So for this release, we have a single coming out in 30 days. We have our basic template here for sort of our release. Um, One of the ways that I like to incorporate pre-saves beyond just, this is my new single, it's coming out on June 10th, pre-save my track now. I also like to think about sort of what else I could do using Feature.fm as the platform. So for me, that would be how do I engage my audience on Spotify, Apple Music, or YouTube to sort of incentivize them to um, commit an action so I can collect data and through my retargeting pixel that I've installed on my pre-save link, and then how do I reach those people? So with this in mind, we have a very basic sort of outline for the socials. And for the purposes of today, we're going to create what I call an entire discography playlist. What that is it's a playlist on Spotify, which I can show you really quickly, that has all of the releases for your artists that they've released up until this point. Now, there's a few reasons why I like to do it that way. But for this example, we'll just work with a playlist that already exists. So if you're a bigger artist on Spotify, Spotify generates a "This Is" playlist, and with that in mind, you're able to sort of already have it built out. If you don't have it built out and you need to make one yourself, there are a few ways that you can do that. So you would do that through Spotify for Artists and then through the profile that you have associated with that for your artist. So what that looks like is it's an actual entire playlist for all of your artist music that you've released on Spotify. So in this case, what that would look like is, and I'll show you in 1 second. So what that is people generally have it for everything. They'll call it like essentials. Like in this case, they'll call it entire discography. They'll call it I don't know, like the entire collection. And a lot of artists use this so that they can sort of gamify Discover Weekly or Release Radar. So for us today, what we want to do is create one using an entire discography playlist. So this is this artist's entire discography that they've ever released on Spotify, including features and singles, from the first one released at the very bottom to the latest one that was released 2 years ago right here. So the purpose of this is to have an option that will allow your fans to add your entire library via a playlist on Spotify. Now, the example today will be strictly for Spotify, but you can also replicate this strategy for many of the other services that you can actually add playlists to. Apple Music, I've learned in the last few weeks, allows you to actually create playlists now that you can have added by fans. So that's a really exciting thing. And you can do this, you can replicate this strategy on Pandora as well. Amongst some of the other DSPs like Amazon Music and Deezer, both of which I've always had to go through like an artist relations rep, but essentially you can replicate this strategy in many places. So for this, I want to put in here sharing my entire discography playlist generally within, I want to say, at least 2 weeks of releasing a track. So how I would do that is I would just put in the copy and the link in my calendar. So if it's coming out on June 10th, I'll probably want to do that around May 20th. And then I'll put that in here as sort of like an overall, just keeping me organized. And what I'd then do is go into feature.fm and I would create essentially what I'm going to use as a landing page for this action. So for this, I would go into my action page of my artist folder from my account, and I would select create an action page. Now, the difference between the action pages and the pre-saves and the smart links, because they're all fantastic things to use, is for me, the way that I always like to explain it is like the user commits an action, hence the name action page. So here you can sort of see that you have a lot of different options that you can take. For this purpose specifically, we're going to do follow artist, user, or playlist on Spotify, but you have that option on Apple Music, and then you also have the option for subscribe on YouTube. We'll work through the landing page that we're creating for this specifically, but for this case, we'll just work with this for what we have right now. So in here, you would enter a Spotify URL or playlist to follow. As part of this marketing plan example, we want to enter in the discography playlist because our goal for this release is to drive as many algorithmically driven playlists on Spotify as possible. For the button text, I just leave it as is. Action success message. I always like to customize this a little bit, so thanks for following my Essentials playlist on Spotify. Check out my new release. That's hot on June 10th, 6:10. So here we could also have an option of following an artist. So for that case, you would just go back to Spotify, you'd select the artist, and then you would just enter that link in here. And then as a post destination URL or unlock, for our campaign, we want to direct people to a YouTube link. So, but this can really be anything. I like to use YouTube because you can host unlisted videos there and it's still associated with your artist profile. So for this, we'll just go to an artist channel and we'll select a video from the channel that's already there. But for this case, let's just say we want to, I don't know, pick a random video. And we'll use that as what we're trying to give people, to drive people to post the unlock. Now, you can add the action link. I'm not sure why that's not working, but anyways, we can also add a follow later on. So we'll click add action, and then this is automatically populated with the playlist artwork that you put in there. Also here, I would probably add a preview URL. So I'll put in the video that we're trying to use. Actually, let's keep the image. I think that would be cleaner. And then here we can add more actions for us. So we'll want to add like save on Spotify. If we want to add an album or maybe a single that's not part of the artist's essentials playlist. Sometimes they'll be like featured on like a different track. So we can pick one here that they like collaborated on with somebody. We can put that in for adding. I like to always say that if you have an artist that does a lot of features, using the save on Spotify rather than versus the essentials playlist, I find to be a great action for folks to take. Here we can also include the same destination, post destination URL if we want, and we can customize this. I would say thanks for saving my single with Brian Taylor. Check out my new single. Again, you can update the copy, but I just like to add a little bit of personalization, and then we can just click add action. Oh, I didn't add our post destination unlock. Okay, so here we have two different actions to commit on Spotify. So one thing that I would suggest if we were going to use this is like a landing page to drive traffic to, in addition to our pre-save, I would customize this so it's follow my essentials playlist. I would say follow my essentials on Spotify, and then save my track with artist's name on Spotify. And you can see here that it's added. Here we could also add different actions to take. If we have instant grats that are rolling out, you could add stream to this. Like we can add Apple and other streaming services. I would say I would also add YouTube to this, and then unlock like a video or a teaser or something like that, so people can like you can relate with the fans, you can push views, you can get more subscribers. So for this, we'll go to YouTube and we'll just grab a channel for example's sake, and that will be the action that people are committing. So they'll subscribe. We can include a post destination unlock, so we can include the video, and we would just click add action. So then it's subscribed. I would customize this to say subscribe to my channel. And then another action, we can add really any of these actions and drive folks here. One thing that I did want to mention was I think that it would be a great idea if somebody utilized these action pages a little bit more during their release process. And I'm trying to encourage folks to like use these as almost like destinations where you could premiere like a music video or things like that, because you can take advantage of the preview URL, which would just populate with a YouTube video on this side. Just sort of trying to get like more creative with the different types of things that we can do. But for our example, the purpose of this is to drive fans to engage with this page specifically, to take actions that will then benefit you as part of your overall release strategy. So for this, we've set it up so people are going to follow our essential playlist and add it to their Spotify libraries, which is the artist's entire discography. We have the option of saving a single that the artist is also featured on that's separate from the essentials playlist of just their albums, and then driving them to subscribe to a YouTube channel, which is a really important metric for you to have if you're going to be releasing video content as part of your overall release strategy. And then we can display the social icons for the artist if you want. I always encourage people to fill this out in the artist folder settings so that they automatically populate. And then the most important part of this action page, and the whole reason why we want to drive traffic to these types of pages, is so that we can pixel folks and then use that information post-release for being able to target people through Facebook and Instagram and Google Ads. So if we're going to be premiering YouTube videos, or you're going to be having people subscribe on YouTube, make sure you fill out the Google Ads so then you can remarket them through Google Ads using your YouTube channel. For this specifically, we'll just save it because we don't really have any other needs to update right now. And then what we'll do is we'll put this link into our marketing plan, and we'll include it in the dates that we want to release it. So because this is an action page and we're going to be sharing it across all of our artist socials and driving them there, I want to use just the direct link. So I'm going to grab that and put that in our plan for May 20th so that we can share this out so that people are committing actions. And we're all set to go with our action page. I do want to note too that if you do have a higher tier account on Feature.fm, you're actually able to customize the subdomain and add that so it's a little bit more personalized. I think that's a really great feature to mention and just to have as a marketer, because it allows some customization for you when you're messaging your fans. I just wanted to point that out. Another thing that you can also do with action pages, like I mentioned earlier, is if you have YouTube videos, you can put those as the preview. You can have any type of the preview sources that were listed. And really the whole purpose is to have fans commit action so they're engaging with your previous content, and then you're prepared to include that in the new content that you're releasing. So for landing pages, the other really great thing about these is there is a workaround that you can embed these on your artist website. So what that means is you can actually embed all of these actions into a page and drive traffic there if you want to do it on just your website. I'll have that included in an FAQ article for you after this so that you can take advantage of that. You also have the option for, on your artist website, having embedding and being able to embed any of the smart links or pre-saves that you set up for your release. So the one that we are using for this is one of these. So if you want to grab custom links, you can get those here, which we already have in our marketing plan, but also you have the ability to grab the widget code. That's down here. You can actually preview this and see what it looks like. Sorry, my internet's a little bit slow today, but you can see what this looks like and you can stream the track. This track is already converted, but if you have a pre-save, you can have folks commit actions. You also have the ability to customize it. So if it's like stream my track, you can see the copy appears up here. I would copy this widget code and put it into my list of assets. So I would just create a new section on here that says action page link or action page embed. And this way, any of your partners that you're working with, or if you have a developer that's building out your website and you want to embed it on there, you can do that. It's really not that complicated of a process to do that, but that is essentially how I would use a landing page as part of my release strategy. And landing page is somewhat of a misnomer because a lot of people think that it's just like a page off of your website, but it could also apply to the link that you're creating when you do these. So yeah, so when I drive people to my action page that I've created, I'm then able to pixel them, and you can see sort of here that it's great because we can have fans commit all these actions, you can customize it, and it's a great place to drive engagement. Now to the more I guess playlisting strategy. So for this release, we sort of set up basic optimizations for each platform and sort of the goals that we wanted to do. As you can see here, these are sort of just updates that you have as part of like putting together the assets for your release and for the marketing plan. To get a little bit more granular, I would want to set the expectations for my playlisting strategy. So that's not just getting editorial or setting up the playlist well, but it's also mentioning like what types of content you're going to be doing when you're sharing your playlists, or you're sharing any editorial, or you're sharing anything really that you're making a part of your marketing plan. I know here we have make sure you have an entire discography playlist, and I just showed you how I would incorporate that into an overall marketing plan strategy using the feature.fm action page. But I would add something on this because remember, we have 30 days to fill content around the release that you're putting out. So I would also make sure that you put together an inspiration playlist. Make sure you have an inspiration playlist. So what that means generally for me is like what the artist listened to when they made the track, what inspired the artist to make the track, really anything that the word inspiration, I suppose, could be applied to. And what I would do with this is between the start of this, when we announced the single, and the single coming out on June 10th, you're going to have weeks of just content that you need to fill, and you want to continually be posting about things without it being like stream here, buy this, follow me. So for that, I would say like maybe a few weeks before the release came out on like May 29th, I would share my inspiration playlist for my artists. So what that means and how that would look is I would put that in my marketing plan with the date. And then what I would do is I would go into feature.fm and I would create a smart link. And I'm going to show a slight workaround for how you can share just one playlist or one link and sort of why I would do it this way. So for me, at the start of this marketing plan, I specifically said that like my goal is to drive more awareness and more plays on Spotify specifically. So for that, I'm going to go to my inspiration playlist and I'm going to grab that because that inspired the making of my track. Um, and I'm going to create a direct link to that playlist using a smart link. So how that looks is I would go back to my artist profile and I would just grab my inspiration playlist. So for me, it would be this. I would make sure that the entire playlist is updated with all the songs that I like. And then I would just grab my playlist link um, and I would go back to feature.fm and I would create a smart link. So we're not doing a pre-save for this. We're not doing a scheduled release. We've already created our pre-save and we don't need to schedule anything. So for this, it's really just going to be driving people specifically to Spotify. That's going to be the entire goal, is for people to get my inspiration playlist, for me to be able to track it, for me to be able to pixel my audience. So for that, we're going to put in our playlist. And what we'll do is we'll remove all the DSPs where it's not available. And we're going to create this so it literally just drives everybody there. Now, what I'm going to want to do next is I'm going to edit this to be House of Horrors, because that's not frightening. I'm particularly attached to the more advanced layout, but you can also use the base layout. That doesn't affect anything. Now here I would edit the description to be something a little bit more personalized. That inspired me. You don't have to use the word inspire. You don't have to be attached to it. It's just for this specifically. You always want to make sure that the email collection is checked on. There's really no reason not to be collecting emails. And then you'll see here that it's just showing Spotify. So what I want to do is I want to click on enable timeout redirection. So it'll direct people to Spotify if they click on the link and then they don't click play. I'll also want to make sure that I click send returning visitors to their preferred service, which really we don't have more than one, but I always like to just click that on. Going to email collection, making sure that's turned on. For social icons, we'll want to switch that on. I can just put one in here so it's populated for the example. And then for social cards, I want to make sure that this looks correct. It should be great because it's coming from a Spotify playlist, but just make sure that like the text is more personalized. I think for the description, it looks great, so we'll just keep it as is, but you can fully customize that here. And then for advanced settings, making sure that you just have your Facebook pixel in there, your Google Ads pixel, and anything else that you want to track, and then just click save. Now you can replicate this with any specific playlist. It could be a playlist that you have on Apple Music. It could be a playlist you have on Spotify or any of the DSPs, and you can use that. A lot of times I've seen people like editorially, if you're going to do like a takeover for Instagram or a takeover for any publication or anything like that, they'll ask you to put playlists together. So I always want to make sure that I give them my link rather than having them get all the follows. So yeah, so here I would just then enter in my link and now I have my inspiration playlist all set up. The whole reason for doing these types of playlists and sharing them is to not only drive engagement or awareness, but to also make sure that people are incorporating, that they're saving your music, that they're streaming it, and that they're following you on the streaming service of your choice. But since this is a direct link, it's really just focused on that one playlist. If you do have that playlist replicated on other services like Apple or Pandora, you can actually just use that strategy and put all of those playlists in for those DSPs in the fields. So what that would look like is you would just go to edit link and you would just enter in the store and you could put that in there. Also, if you have like a post on your website or you have a piece of merch that like also inspired the making of this playlist or the song, you can include that as well. So that's sort of how I would use this for sharing playlists, for like going directly there and having it be separate from the pre-save. Um, Another thing that I would suggest doing is if part of your release strategy is you have like, you know, $1,000 to throw around on a streaming service and you want to have an ad budget and that's part of your goal, I would just include that as part of like the marketing campaign. So if you have, let's say, an ad budget of $1,000 and you want to specifically just put that into a streaming service that will allow you to raise awareness on a platform, on their platform, you can do that with Deezer. You can actually run sponsored songs on Deezer through our platform. You can run Spotify audio ads. You can run ads on Pandora as well, in addition to just doing audio liners on Pandora for free and tagging your music. But for this purpose, we'll say our ad budget is $1,000 and our goal is to drive awareness of our music on Spotify. I'm not particularly partial just to Spotify, but for a lot of examples, it's probably the most universal platform. So for us, if we want to drive awareness on Spotify, what are the goals that, or what are the actionable steps that we can take to meet that goal, with also keeping in mind that we want to be able to raise awareness of the new track, but build our audience in advance of that track coming out. So one way that you can do that is through doing an action page that's specifically focused on just Spotify and doing as many actions as possible for the fans. So an idea that I've sort of been toying around with is if you have a website like hosted on Squarespace, or if you have a website hosted anywhere else where it's like really easy for you to embed things, what I would do is I would create like the action page that we created earlier, and I would make all of the actions on it just specifically for Spotify. So I would do the Essentials playlist, I would do Save My Track with any feature that you can. I would also do follow an artist on there. So I would enter in the artist's URL to follow, so we can grab that again really fast. And really sort of make it almost like a contest, because you have that capability on the platform. So what I would do is I'd go back, I would add this so that they follow you. And I would personalize this as well. And then make sure that you have collect fan emails. You have the option of just adding the post, like you can add automatically follow, or not automatically follow, but add follow as an action after they commit it. But for this, there's a very specific reason why we're adding in all of these actions. And what we'll do is we'll say we want them to, I don't know, stream a track. So we'll just pick a track on the artists. Let's go back to our artist page. And what we'll do is we'll grab another featured track and we'll say stream this. Let's pick a random track. Phineas and Herb. We'll just pick a track. And then we'll put that here. And the whole purpose of this is we'll be able to, if fans have committed these actions, we have the ability to then, if they've opted in to give us their emails, or they've opted in when they're saving this stuff, we can then pick a winner on the back end and reach out to them and be like, hey, thanks for doing all of these actions on my Spotify action page. Here's like a clip that you can do. Here's a clip of my new song before anyone else hears it. And then making sure, obviously, that you have like the pixel in there, that the social cards all look good, that the icons are entered if you want them, and then clicking save. Now, the reason why we're doing this specifically on Spotify is we want to we want to include this in our marketing plan. And I'll delineate that it's just Spotify. So for this, what we'll do is we'll actually be able to sort of gamify the action page. So what I would do is I would start like the contest for this, I guess if you want to use the word contest. And I would embed this on my artist page, or I would share this on my socials and just say that like enter, I don't know, I'm horrible with copy on the spot, enter or follow my artist page. Exciting news. Currently running a Spotify contest for a chance to do a live stream with me. And then I would put this in here. And then I would say unlock a chance to win the URL for my live stream by going here. Now, with that in mind, because I just sort of changed what this looks like, I would go back to my action page that I created. And what I would do is, as the post destination unlock for this, I would go here, activate unlock, and then I would put a link to my live stream in there. So that way, when fans commit any of these actions, if they just do one, they get access to the live stream, and then you're able to have them all go there, or they can RSV. It could be an RSVP link on Facebook or your website that's password protected or something. And then they're able to do a live streaming with you after they've committed an action. I didn't actually enter anything, so that's one way of also doing this for streaming so that you can drive more streams. You can replicate this strategy on Apple as well, which you can do if you want. You're able to add more stuff for Apple on here as well. So you can pretty much replicate the same exact things. The wording is just a little different. But yeah, those are the two right now that we have. We're always working on new stuff, but those are the things that I would do if you want to do like a contest. You could do that on YouTube. You could do the subscribe to unlock. You could do you could do Apple Music, and really just sort of using all of the tools at your disposal, because any of those actions that fans are committing and you have your pixel inserted, you're able to collect through that pixel and then reuse that information later. For other stuff with playlists, if your goal is to drive awareness on Spotify overall for your ad budget, what I would do is I would actually put some of that ad money into social ads on Facebook or Instagram and retarget people that have already been pre-saving your track to then commit those actions on Spotify. If you want to drive awareness just generally, I would create some Spotify audio ads and just say like, hey, I'm running this, not contest, but like I'm doing this thing where you can get access to a live stream with me. And here's the link for that, and then put in your feature.fm link. So that covers a lot of the more playlist oriented stuff. So just to recap, we've now added an inspiration playlist with a direct link to the platform that we created it for to sort of fill in the gap between the release being announced as a pre-save and it coming out. We've added a share your entire discography playlist on the streaming services, which will give fans the option to add your discography. And now we've also added an action page specifically focused on building our audience on Spotify through committing actions. Again, you can replicate that on Spotify or Apple Music. But yeah, so that's it for sort of those tools. Now for the artist website, one thing that you always want to have when you go to a website is you want to have everything be sort of like above the fold. And I can show you what that means. Let me think of them. Now, if you go to an artist website, what above the fold means is that it's the first thing. What's the first thing that you see above having to stream? Now here you can see like they're obviously driving streams and downloads for this track. But one thing that a lot of artists sort of miss or place at like the bottom of their pages are social links, and then email subscription forms. So one thing that I've sort of been testing personally using our platform is creating an email collection widget, is what I like to call it. So what that means is it's really just a feature.fm link that you're able to just take advantage of the subscribe to emails function. So what that looks like and how I've been using that is you would create a smart link. And the whole purpose of this is to then embed this on your website and have it function as like an email collection widget for you. What this looks like is removing all the store options. I would just enter in, I guess, hold on, let me just enter in like a link. Now, we're not going to use this, and I'm probably going to have to close the store that it's scanning right now, but we're just putting this in for a second. And my internet takes forever. Sorry about that. So what the purpose of this is like the whole function of the platform is so that you can be a better marketer and so that you can use certain tools that we have at your disposal. This right here will be sort of the main thing that we're looking for. As you can see here, like this is sort of what it's supposed to look like. And one second. So if you go to link settings, you can then go in here and you can customize this. What I would do is just put in like an artist photo or just any photo that I would have on my computer that I could use. I can steal one really quickly. And it could be anything. It could also be a preview. It could also just be a preview image. It doesn't have to be an image. I'm sorry. It could be also be a preview video. It doesn't just have to be an image. It could be anything that we've shown you before that you can do. So what I would do is I would enter this in here. I would then put the name of the artist. Then I would say sign up for my newsletter. And then that's really it. And then what I would do is I would save this. Oh, shoot, there's my link. One second. I just rescanned it, which is not the most brilliant decision I've made. But the whole purpose of this is to create this link, and what it does is you're then able to have folks subscribe and you can embed this on your artist's website. But the whole purpose of this is to be able to do that. So then you would just, after you create that, you would get your link if you want to drive people just to sign up. And then if you want to embed it on your artist site, you would just get Widget, put that in the marketing plan as like the email sign up form that you made. And then you would just put that Widget code in here for the marketing plan. So you know that you have to update your website. The purpose of this is to have, for me, would be to have everything live in the same place and then be able to collect everything. So you have the ability to collect emails on your artist account and they all live in your audience tab, which you can then export and then import into whatever your newsletter service is. So for the artist website, you can see here that like they have the email sign up form and it's a pop-up. If you wanted to embed that on your artist website, you would then just select the embed code from the form and you would embed it on the website. One of the things, like this is a great example of what this should look like because it's showing it's showing exactly what you want to do. You want to have your email sign up for and above the fold in a fixed header, which is what this is. That means that whenever you scroll through the page, it stays with you, so you know where you're at. And you also want to make sure that like anything on your artist site is directing people to stream or download a track. Another great example of like a more like smaller indie act that's not The Weeknd and might be more relatable to people is this band. They have a great website. As you can see here, everything that I just mentioned is like the driving force on the website. So you've got all of the artist social links, you've got the email sign up form, and you have all of the different sections that you'd go to. So in terms of an artist page, like this is the type of setup that you want to have so people see everything at once, and all the most important stuff is the most focused right here. Yeah, so that's sort of the artist website. I would use the embed form from from this that we just walked through for the emails to embed on my artist website. I would then sort of just look at my strategy and see like what I could do to encourage people to get more emails. One thing could be for like the email strategy for the release would be to like encourage people to sign up for the email, and then you can send them like a coupon code for merch or maybe a live stream link, something like that. Those are the more creative use cases that I can think of. But now our marketing plan is a little bit more filled out for us to build off of more next week. And so now I can answer any questions that you guys may have, which it looks like you guys have a few. Okay, so there's a lot of questions. Hold on one second. The first question is from Ban. Is contacting curators in our genres individually as listed in Indie Spotify Bible the best way to get playlisted? Especially the old songs that were already released maybe long ago. I mean, there's no reason not to contact curators in the genres that you have access to. I think that it's really important that if you're going to be reaching out to curators, that it has to do with your music that's going to be released or maybe just got released. Getting editorial support from a DSP for old songs that aren't like a catalog reissue is really difficult. So I would say if you're going to reach out to curators, do so in a way that makes sense for that release and make sure that they actually will, be the right people to reach for your song. You don't want to have an electronic track that you're reaching out to the alternative editor about if that doesn't fit. So I hope that helps with that one. Someone asked, can you explain how to game Discover Weekly? I don't think that there's anything that we've mentioned how to do this a few times in this webinar as well as others. The main things for anything that's algorithmically driven where you have a single and it's coming out in more than 2 weeks from the point that you have, you want to make sure that you're like sharing songs from your artists. So like the entire discography playlist is a great way to do that. And for Release Radar, Discover Weekly generally gets suggested to people that have already listened to your song over a period of time, like right before your song comes out. So I would encourage anything that encourages people to listen to your discography on the Spotify, because that's where Discover Weekly is great. So, following, like using that action page that we set up specifically for Spotify is a great strategy. Encouraging streams on the songs if you want to just create an action page to stream like a specific track. Adding playlists is a great one. So, doing the essential discography one is a great one. Those are all like the best tips that I can provide right now to sort of help answer that question. Cora asked, I wanted to give fans a parody song in exchange for following or pre-saving. Would I use the unlock feature to do this? Yes, you can use the unlock feature to do that. So what I would do is select the actions that you want them to commit, which in this case you've done following or pre-saving, and then for the unlock URL, I would put in the link for however you're hosting the parody song that you want to give away. The alternative for that is also doing like the subscribe to my email list and then sending them a song. If they subscribe to your email list, you can then email them the song by exporting the emails from your audience tab. So there's a few ways that you can do this. But for the unlock feature, if you want to just keep it very simple and straightforward for like following or pre-saving, you would just enter in that download link as the post destination or the unlock URL where I showed you guys earlier. Next question from Kelsey. This may be more of a question for Spotify, but my account is linked to my personal Facebook alias. Is there a way to have my own artist playlist created by my artist name instead of my personal Facebook alias? You actually have to have a Spotify account separate from your Spotify artist page to create playlists, and then you pin them on the page. They used to be able to merge your personal account and your artist page, which is why some people can like include links in theirs. But for now you have to actually create an artist page, which I know, Kelsey, you already have. And then you also have to create a personal page where you create those playlists and then you pin them to the Spotify for artist page. If you need any help with that, feel free to email me. I'm happy to help out. Estefania said, this is great. Would you send a recap of the steps via email? Yes, all of our webinars that we do are able to be viewed later on. We always send a recap email, so you will get that since you're here and you probably signed up for it. And also, if for anybody that wants to share any of these webinars out, they're all up on our FAQ page on feature.fm. Kelsey asked another question. I've heard of third-party sites where you can create Spotify ads, but can you do this directly through Spotify? If not, which third-party sites do you recommend? You actually just go to Spotify audio ads. They have like an ad suite that you create, or I'm sorry, they call it the ad studio, and you create ads through there, and then that's where you run them. I would not run Spotify audio ads through third-party sites. I would do it on the Spotify audio ads page. Yeah, so hopefully that answered that. Sean asked, can you provide information on where to budget for ads on streaming service, i.e. Spotify audio, like you mentioned? For budgeting ads for streaming services, it's really dependent on the artist that you have, right? So if you have an artist that is, I don't know, more popular with an older demo, I would probably go for like Pandora, or gauging wherever the artist like traffic is. There's certainly genres that are more popular on certain DSPs, but the main audio ads that I've run that work great are Spotify audio, which is arguably the easiest ad studio platform to learn and to use and target things. There's a little bit, they have like a limited functionality in terms of like demographic and targeting, but you can sort of work around that. Pandora's audio ads are great, but also it's kind of hard to justify sometimes if your artist doesn't have a big enough following on Pandora to run audio ads there. There's also, we at feature.fm have a Deezer sponsored song ad service where you can run ads doing that through our platform, which is a great one if you want to target more users on Deezer. Yeah, so those, I mean, realistically, those are the three. There are some workarounds with Amazon, but I have not done enough research and running ads on Amazon to be able to speak to the successfulness of running ads to promote your music on that platform. I hope that helps. But in terms of budget, if you want just like regular budgeting advice, I would say just start with as much as you can offer. Even if it's just driving traffic from like Instagram or Facebook to Spotify, that's great. But don't just do one specific streaming service if you're going to put ads behind the socials. I would just include your feature.fm link and just make it a little bit more generalized. Marcus asked, where is the unlock feature? It's in the action pages. So if you go, there's also some degrees of this that you can do with the pre-save. So for showing you where that is, if you go to edit page, you can actually see the right here, there's activate unlock. And what that does is you're able to switch this on and then add a URL that sends fans to after an action is completed. You can also, when you add any of these actions, I'll just click one just to show you. Any of these that you have, you can actually add a post destination URL or unlock. So if you want something to just be specific to that one, you can put that there. If you have one that you want to have for all of them, you can put that here. So that should answer your question. Sean asked, what is the best way to get on a playlist? Sean, there's not enough time in the day to explain the myriad of ways that you can do that. The best thing that you can do is just put a lot of effort into your streaming service profiles and making sure that you're taking advantage of Discover Weekly or Release Radar. There are bigger artists that get into playlists like New Music Friday, or I don't know, the new hip hop playlists, electronic, any of those. And even getting in those isn't a guarantee or recipe for success, because if your song doesn't perform well in that playlist, you won't get more. So really it's about putting together a concise strategy and not relying just on getting editorial from the gatekeepers at Spotify or Apple or any of those. If you want to get on playlists, I would suggest building relationships with the curators for the genre of the music that you're building. Doing third-party playlists are great if you have the time to reach out and build your own list. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many ways that you can get on a playlist. Make a really great song and get signed to Universal Music Group or a big record label, and they'll do all the work for you. That's probably the easiest answer. And then Denise asked, is there a way to get listeners to follow? Yeah, I would, like you can see here on this example, do a follow button instead of encouraging people to stream. I always like to tell people that, like, if you want to get a bigger audience or you want to gamify Discover Weekly or Release Radar, it's a whole lot easier to do if the main action that you're having people commit is to follow or save your track on Spotify. I know that this is a very specific example for Spotify, but like it's the same thing for Apple. If you want to get people to save your track, you want to get people to follow you. I argue that like the most important metric for any of these DSPs is to have people save songs to their library. That's the most important metric to me, because when you look at the analytics, if over 50% of the people that are listening to your music or your artist music is coming from them having added it to their library, it's a much easier way to market than if you're relying solely on like editorial driving more than 50% of your artist's plays, because then you're sort of at the mercy of the DSPs and not really building a concise streaming strategy. It looks like we are done with questions. If anybody has any questions or they want to reach out with anything, feel free to email me. And yeah, if you guys are looking for a great audio, like if you're looking to reach more people through audio ads, I can not highly recommend our Deezer sponsored song more than I am right now. Yeah, I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll be here next week with the next section of our marketing plan, where we're going to talk about territory management and sort of how to set up your release for worldwide success, because there's so many things that you can do. But yeah, I hope everybody has a great day, and thank you guys for coming.